Hello everyone, my name is Czapp Árpád and this is our first podcast episode in collaboration with Wine Inspires. Today my guest is Yuri Champaniaque from Brussels. Yuri is a professional champagne ambassador and organizer of unique tastings. He is the co-founder of the Bubbles Academy in Riga and the co-founder of the Russian Wine Club. According to Vivino, he rated more than 1,000 champagnes, but I'm sure that it's even more than that. He's one of the leading champagne influencers on Instagram, with very fun and insightful profiles, with reviews and stories from the champagne industry. Thank you, Yuri, for joining me.
Thank you, especially for such a great introduction. I just realized how good I am. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. But this is true. You know, on the way to Champagne, you don't really notice that much. Like you said that I already tasted more than 1,000 champagnes in Vivino, and finally I just gave up. I mean, it's like...
Yeah, I saw on your profile that your last rating was like 6 months ago. So I'm sure that in those 6 months, there were a lot more.
Yeah, basically. You just walk into some champagne house or you visit a grower, and then you do what? Like, it's more like a video than...
Yeah, I know that feeling. I had the same all the time. And then if you try to do that and you can't do that, you feel frustrated that, I didn't review all those good wines and champagnes.
Exactly.
And then you just give up. I had the same. Yeah. But still, you had like 3,000 ratings in total. So that's quite a perseverance.
Yeah. You mind if I open a bottle of champagne? I don't really feel comfortable talking about champagne without champagne in my glass. And
Yeah.
Okay, so this time I don't know if you see it. I took this Duminil. If you have a chance, I'll tell a little story behind.
All right.
I really like it because it's an entry-level cuvée, but it's got 50% of Solera in it. Meaning, well, I know that people don't like this Solera wort. They prefer Reserve Perpetuelle, but for the entry-level champagne, okay. And it finally puts me back in my normal position with a glass.
All right. Yeah, that's the right position. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for accepting.
Yeah. Nice.
Okay, so as a beginning, maybe tell me about yourself. How did this champagne journey begin? What is happening right now? Where are you heading to?
That's a really good question, by the way. If somebody had told me maybe 5 years ago that I'd be champagne maniac, like Champaniaque, I'd just laugh. Because 5 years ago, I was a petroleum engineer. I had nothing to do with the world of wine, except that we established our famous Russian Wine Club, which is now probably the biggest community in Russia with more than 150 members. And it's a pretty big one. And we started doing tasting. Originally, it all started like in Vivino. That's why we're still attached to Vivino. As you know, besides the tasting notes, it's also like a social network. So you can leave your comments. And finally, people, back then it was in Russia, started leaving comments. Hey, I've seen that you tasted some cool wine. You mind if I join you somewhere at the restaurant? So one day there were about 20 people. Everybody brought their own wine. And that's how the Russian Wine Club started. It now... Well, with COVID, everything is slowed down like everywhere, but usually it's been at least 1 or 2 tasting a week now, different styles, Bordeaux, Burgundy, New World, Oval. And at some point you realize that you simply cannot drink it all. Even if you taste, you still cannot taste it all. So you have to choose. And just like I like to have, we have only one liver. I mean, if I had 2 livers, one for one for red, one for white, it'll be the easiest job, but that's not how it goes. So I had to choose one, and since then I moved to Brussels because of my wife's job. I realized that Champagne is only 3 hours on car, and I became in charge of like department in Champagne. So quite often before this COVID, I went to Moscow where I organized the Masterclasses and the tasting. And now it's what started like a hobby 5-6 years ago, now became my basically main activity.
Oh, so now it's your full-time job, right?
More or less. I mean, again, with COVID is slowed down, like even most renowned sommelier or tasters are kind of like on hold now, but yeah, it's getting more and more like my full-time job with its masterclasses. For example, this Bubble Academy project that we found with Stas and Riga, it's like academy that we prepared, and we were thinking about making 2 sessions a year. Again, now it's on hold, but the wines are still there if somebody is interested. So let's call it extra aging, and it's like 3-4 days of the master classes. I mean, it's a project that needs preparation. It's a project that needs organization, and then this master classes, the taste and the wine, sort of the wine trade. It also takes time and time and time. So yes, I can say it's getting more like my job now, but it's a nice job. I don't.
I think the best job, actually. Now the COVID situation is quite hard because now, as I imagine, I wanted to ask you that, are you working just in the master classes or in person, or are you planning to do like online sessions? But then I thought that you have to taste those wines and those champagnes. So I'm sure that most of the events are in person.
Yeah, exactly. And the biggest problem with champagne, for example, I know people who do online tasting with Bordeaux, Burgundy. I'm talking still wines. There are technologies where you can split the bottle, into like smaller bottles for 10, 15 people, send this and still have online session with normal tastings. But they...
Yeah, with champagne it would be hard.
It's not an option.
Yeah, and it would be quite expensive to everyone buy the whole lineup and then just taste all of the bottles and then...
Exactly. Plus, between the countries, there is logistics problem. For example, I cannot officially send the bottles into Russia because Russia is outside the European Union. So we're talking about customs. Well, it's just the same if people asking what it takes to send a bottle in the United States. Sometimes you can just send it, but if you have to go the official way, it could be an nightmare.
Yeah, it's quite complicated.
Exactly. And since I do the master classes in the domain of champagne, I prefer to find some interesting growers. I mean, everybody can buy a bottle of Moët Chandon and Veuve Clicquot. Okay, but we've probably already tasted it, all of us. So to have an interesting masterclass or take some old bottle, like we've tasted 1979, so 1985. Once you open this bottle, basically it's gone. I mean,
it's a piece of history.
Yeah, exactly. And there are no two similar bottles in this world. I mean, about this aging.
Yeah.
So yeah. But I do my online IG lives once in a while. When between the two waves, we did a few. Well, I actually decided to take advantage of this time and travel into the Champagne region. I think it, let's call it doing I'm self-educating myself now.
Yeah, that's always good. Actually, I was planning to visit Russia this summer, but the COVID situation made it impossible. Because one of my best friends is Russian, and we were planning to visit Russia.
Oh, really?
We were planning a huge trip, like 1 or 2 weeks there, but yeah, we had to postpone it. I hope soon we can do it.
If you ever come to Russia, after this COVID thing, you're welcome to join one of our tasting. I can probably combine the visit and give you some, some excursions, or we can go to, if you have more time, you can go to Russian wineries because.
Oh, that would be beautiful.
If there is one good thing about COVID, that since basically we have like an iron curtain now, people from Russia, unless we're talking about few exceptions, cannot travel in Europe and vice versa. So the Russian wine industry is booming now and then really, really making good progress. I mean, they invested lots of money into the terroir. They buy in grapes like Pinot Noir. And I mean, champagne part, or let's put it this way, like bubbles, it's still they still have a long way to go. But as far as like nice accessible wines, we just recently had tasting in Russian Wine Club. Obviously, I didn't participate in, but people were really, really impressed. So
very interesting. So there is still a good side in everything. Yeah, I know that in Russia the champagne culture is quite big, so there is a huge champagne market in Russia, right?
Well, say yes and no, because I think it's like in the United States or in France. If we talk about Paris, New York, and Moscow, and then we have to talk about the rest of the country. So so in Russia, if you take like the whole country of Russia, I don't know, the earnings are different if we compare Moscow and the rest of the country. I mean, people make 5-6 times more money living in Moscow than with the rest of the country. I mean, it's just general comparison, but in Moscow there is still about 15, maybe 16 million people living now, and the restaurant industry, the bar industry. We also need to talk about St. Petersburg, obviously, and some big cities, but I mean, to me, it's Moscow where it's booming now. And even between the COVID waves, I've been talking to the growers, I've been talking to the winemakers. Russia took all the allocation for 2020 and asking for more. So there is booming. Fortunately for me, because I really did my best last few years to introduce champagne country into Russia. Because not Soviet champagne, that's an interesting story that I can tell a little bit later. But real champagne like this, tasty one, acidic, not 60 grams of sugar, mixed with some bulk wine and then gasified with CO2 like you do soda or Fanta. So talking real champagne, and I'm so happy to see that it's getting better and better and better. And now you can find a bar in Russia where you find, 60 references of champagne, not by glasses, but a few could be by glasses, which is tremendous to me.
Great. Before the COVID situation, how often do you travel between Brussels and Moscow?
Once a month at least, maybe sometimes even more often, because again, it's always better to have a personal taste, and I had some things to do in Moscow, some personal things, because I'm still a Russian citizen, so you can imagine bureaucracy everywhere. Yeah, so there is always some paper you need to get, there is always something you need to get, so I travel for that. And while doing this, I always try to bring a few interesting bottles, have some masterclass, and try to present the wines which either are not in Russia yet, some interesting growers, or some old bottles which would never be in Russia because it's private collection.
Yeah. Do you also bring Russian wines to Brussels to showcase the Russian wine culture?
Well, it's a good question, because actually I did, but it's been a few years ago, and at that point Russian wine industry wasn't to that level, so I brought a few Rieslings, I brought a few sparkling wines, I put them in a blind tasting, and I was supposed to be a patriot at that point, meaning it's me who had to say, hey, this is good wine, but no, even me couldn't say that, because there were one, expensive, and the quality left much to be desired. However, now, for example, I recently tasted, I'm always trying to call it champagne, but it's not champagne, meaning like Russian bubbles, which were 100% Chardonnay, zero dosage, and 60-month on lease, which is like 5 years. So for me, it's already nice standard if you take care of your vines, if you take care of your grapes. And frankly speaking, it was up to the reasonable growers level champagne. So obviously, if you take champagne made in Champagne and by champagne standards, it will be probably better than this Russian made bubbles, but it was still good. But hey, Champagne's got hundreds of years of tradition. Champagne's got the best terroir in the world as far as like chalky soils and everything, and they already have a head start. So I think the fact that you don't spit that wine right after you took the first sip already says that quality is good.
Some more about the Bubbles Academy. How does it work? I saw that your next event would be in early 2021.
Well, it's supposed to be in March this year, and it was supposed to be like 23rd of March this year, but then all the countries went over lockdown just a week before that. So bad luck to us. So we shifted it to October, only to find out that no, it's impossible to be in October. That's why we moved it to early 2021. But this is actually an interesting project that me and Stas were always thinking of, because when I do my master classes in Moscow, it's usually after a day of work. So I bring, 8 bottles, I bring the stories, I visited the winemakers, and then people come after work. And here I am, instead of letting them simply drink and enjoy champagne, I start telling them my smart thing. So, there are certain points that they say, okay, Yuri, I mean, it's nice, but can we just drink? I mean, and and I just laughed. Okay, I understand. It could be too much, so I try not to overload people with lots of information. But I always had this passion, and so did Stas. So we decided, okay, what we do instead of simply drinking champagne, we'll bring about, I don't know, maybe 100 bottles and different one. I mean, like we had Magnum Krug that dated from 80s. We had I mean, it was a really nice collection. Yeah, it was just. So we let people, there were about like 10 people in our group. So we decided, okay, instead of making, like highlighting the champagne, like drinking part, we'll do the master classes on theory, and the people will be drinking kind of like to feel the theory. So for example, I had master class on Côte de Blanc. So we brought map of Côte de Blanc, we put a label on it to visualize it, and then I was telling the stories showing, okay, for example, Sweden lives here, and I brought a bottle of Silos. So I mean, it was a good level. Or Du Bois, we had Fleur de Passion, which is a great cuvée, one of the best Chardonnay, I think, and the others. Yeah. But besides drinking, it was also stories and why this cuvée is good, why we like it, and so on, so on. So totally, we tasted about 100 champagne, and it was a fantastic project.
Yeah. How long do you do this? How many days? Or is it just one day?
Oh, no, it's 3 days. Otherwise, it will be totally impossible.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah, and plus, it's such a pity if we have to split all these champagnes. For example, like we had one, the Millionaires going to 95. I mean, really good champagne, age one. And okay, if you're at the wine show, you're a professional, okay, go to the next counter. But sometimes you really want to drink it and enjoy it. And it's a pity if you open, I don't know, like a Magnum of Krug 40-year-old and then have to speed half of it. So we decided, no, we'll stretch it to 3 days, more like a long weekend from Thursday to Sunday. And then obviously there'll be some exam. And first session we had, it was fantastic. As a matter of fact, we had few people that booked for the second session after graduating from the first one.
Oh, nice. And you do the different sessions, you're tasting different champagnes, so one can go to like all the sessions and do it all together?
Yeah, if they like champagne, they're more than welcome to join because, well, even if you take Côte de Blanc, I was already joking in my Instagram, if I go to Caman, I can spend a week without sobering up and leaving this place. And I leave my car. I'll be just walking from one winemaker to another. So imagine a masterclass on the whole Côte de Blanc. I mean, it can take a year just to taste the wine. So the hardest part was to choose the wines, and they were like really, we were almost fighting because, oh yeah, I want to put this winemaker. No, we already have so many cuvées. And for example, I wanted to show 100% terroir Wari, which is really exotic, 100% Cuit. So meaning not only we just say, okay, this is just a nice grower, let's taste him. No, we wanted to show the difference between the different places, different terroir, even different growers. And we're so happy that we finally got support. People like the growers themselves, which are our friends, they were looking at us and they started supporting the second session. For example, we want to demonstrate the difference in still wines, which I think really important. And unless you go to Champagne, are impossible to taste anywhere else. And you can buy a bottle of champagne and taste it, but for me, champagne is always an art of blending. Even if we don't talk about the big houses, very seldom you have one big parcel. Most of the times you have 20, 30 parcels scattered all over the champagne, maybe 5, 6, but they're still scattered, and you still make assemblage. For example, when I visited Guibora, they had only 4 cuvées, but they vinified separately every parcel, almost every vine to be started, every different ages of vines, and it's art of blending in first place. And we wanted to see and we wanted to demonstrate people that before you start understand the blend, it's very important to go and understand like the stones, or the key element. And for that we get support of the growers, and I'm really happy, and I really appreciate that. So this is pretty interesting project. That's why people still want to go to the second session.
Yeah, so there is potential to grow with this. And what about your students? Do you have like international students or more local? Do people travel there just for the masterclass, or?
No. Well, we almost had no locals, because the first session was 100% Russian. as soon as I announced it in our champagne community in Moscow, we had people who wanted to join it. So we decided, okay, since it's like the first session and you've got, it's like a discovery for all of us because we've never done such a 3-day, 4-day masterclass in our lives before. So it's much easier to start with the people you already know that can give you some advices, maybe, so as soon as we announced, we already had the first group and we said, okay, if we already have the people, why to find somebody else? But the second one was supposed to be fully international. We had the students from the United States, all over from Europe, and it was supposed to be in English already. And there it would be actually more interesting because we learned some mistake that we made. For example, like as professional, we prefer drinking. For me, I can easily taste 30-40 champagnes a day. It won't be such a pleasure as the work because my teeth will hurt the next morning.
Yeah.
But okay, I can do this. However, for many people, it was really important to taste champagne, maybe to have some gastronomic touch. So we decided to, like for example, for this session, we decided to go to the best seafood place in Riga called Barents and actually have like 5-6 course meal with their sommelier, which is very renowned, and with our champagne. So we have this combination, kind of really, really nice gastronomic dinner. So we decided to shift it a little bit, and I think eventually it's going to be great. Now,
Yeah, so it's a whole experience, not just a champagne class.
yeah, not just champagne taste, because we
Nice.
found out that unless you are really pro, it could be boring to a certain way. I mean, okay, you taste champagne number 56, 57, you already tasted Old La Condamné, you tasted Roederer and Crystals, you tasted it all. Okay, here comes champagne number 72, but so
I can't really imagine getting bored of drinking too much champagne.
I never. I mean, when I go to Champagne, it's like, okay, I wish I could stay here for another 30 minutes, but but people are
Yeah.
different, and we want them also to have some pleasure because Riga is a beautiful town. It's a small one, it's a medieval one, and really cozy. And we decided to, okay, let's not make it too professional side. I mean, if there are some sommeliers which we had who want to get more information, we are welcome to give it to them. We invited 2 guest speakers. One of them, Kristaps, is also renowned on Instagram. Another is renowned sommelier, Raymond Thompson. They're all famous. And okay, if people want professional side, they can get it. If you just come, well, I wouldn't say for fun, but to have pleasure with drinking, you'll get it as well.
Great. Okay, so let's go a little bit deeper. I would like to talk about champagne almost on a philosophical level. What do you think? And you can answer this as subjectively as you wish.
You mind if for the philosophy I open another bottle because I think
You might need that.
yeah.
For you, how do you feel? What is the, or maybe more, what are those basic elements of champagne that make it stand out this much? I mean, there are a lot of sparkling wines, the same method from the same grape varieties all around the world, but still champagne has a unique place. And besides the name and the terroir, what would you say? What are those unique factors that make it this special?
It's a really good question. I mean, like in our masterclass in our Bubbles Academy, we actually had a masterclass World Sparkling Wines. But once you put champagne in between, well, maybe only English bubbles are getting closer to it as far as acidity. But otherwise, people say, okay, this is not champagne, this is not champagne, this is not champagne. So first, I would agree with you that yes, champagne is different from the other bubbles. What makes it different? Well, you say besides terroir, but I still want to mention the terroir because to me this is unique. This is something you cannot duplicate. If you have 500 meters of clay, of chalk, you cannot take it out and move it to another place. So
Yeah, of course.
So I'd still mention this. Another thing what makes it is the experience of generations. Like the bottle I open now is the one that Cédric Mousset already did harvesting this year. It was a fantastic experience and I really like it. And I mean, it's like depuis since 1923, but he goes way more than this generation. So, for example, Tarlan and the other winemakers, they go like not just one or two generation, but 10, 12, 15 maybe generation. In Russia, since 1980, we lost one country. I mean, there were so many events. We had two crises. Well, the world crisis of 2008, and people were still growing their vines and making champagne. This you cannot buy. I mean, if you take 50, 60-year-old vines, and I can tell because we've been harvesting, you already taste the grape. Because, well, I thought it was just a legend, okay? 10-year-old vine, 40-year-old vine is still the same grape. You know, well, what could be different? But no, you taste it, and if you make it juice, you already feel that this juice is richer, it's more ample, it gives you more volume, and so the craftsman. So I'd say maybe item number 2, the craftsmanship and their people making it. They've been learning how to make champagne for generations, and there is something you cannot simply buy even if you have lots of money.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's very good answer. You cannot buy. It's not about technology. It's about experience. Yeah.
Exactly. And they've been investing into this, not only money, I'm not talking about money at this point, but efforts. So if this guy making champagne knows his 50-year-old vine, and 50 years from, back from now, his father, his grandfather, probably himself and his children are going and visit this vine, they know basically every single grape. They can they can give a name to every single bunch of grape. They know it so well that is pretty much irreplaceable. Well, this would be like philosophical part, and another part. Well, of course, the climate, but terroir, the famous acidity, which varies. Like, for example, I had sparkling wine made in South Africa. It's called Domaine de Dieu, which is good wine. I know the owner of the domain. They brought classical grapes, Pinot, Meunier, and Chardonnay. They were using champagne technologies. They built everything like that. And when I tasted it, I said, still there is something in this. And they say, hey, Yuri, instead of that much chalk, we had really fat layer of clay that goes so deep. And this you cannot replace, meaning you never have this acidity on the tail. But to me, this is terroir and the craftsmanship. I'd say those two the key elements.
Yeah, it's obviously irreplaceable. Okay, maybe let's talk about some current events. What do you think? How the COVID situation would affect the wine and the champagne market?
I'd like to be positive. You know me, I'm always a positive person when it comes to champagne, but it's probably one of the things where I have to be more realistic, and I say it's going to hit hard, especially the big houses. Especially big houses, financially, especially the big houses, but the small growers as well, because big houses are usually part of some big group, and they have more financial support than the single family that has a few hectares of vines and that have to grow and basically survive, and they cannot sell their bottles. So I think it's gonna be hard, because not only champagne is not only people cannot visit champagne, there are no marketing tools for the families. They like visits, they got like tasting, they've got this wine show, different salon. Le Printemps de Champagne, the Champagne Week, has been cancelled in April. But I'm also talking about the champagne itself. If we don't talk about people like me, wine geeks, is mostly a wine of celebration.
Yeah, celebration. Yeah, exactly.
And if you have nothing to celebrate, closed. I mean, basically, you have no parties, you have no nightclubs. Okay, this is more for the big houses, but still. If everything is closed, but for the growers, they usually elaborate such good wine that the biggest clients are 2-3 star restaurant, or really just simply good restaurants. And like in Belgium, for example, all the restaurants are closed, so there is not so much you can do about selling your wines. I mean, people are happy to buy it, but they get nowhere to drink. That's why when I do on my Instagram, I always try to say, hey, even if you buy a few bottles of champagne from your favorite grower, you're still gonna help him.
Yeah, of course. Now it's quite important, and no festivals, no weddings, New Year's Eve. That's the big one, the highest champagne sales the whole year.
Exactly.
And we will miss that this
Exactly.
year.
Which I hope people will still buy, a bottle or two of champagne to celebrate it.
But not too big parties. And don't you think that I was thinking about these champagne houses and also wineries? These are like long-term businesses. I mean, they make wine, they make a champagne, and they can age it for years, for 10 years, and just put it on the market after that. And maybe they are a little bit more stable than other industries because they are such a slower and long-term business strategy.
And they're usually part of some big financial group, like for example, Moët Chandon is a part of LVMH. So they have bigger financial resources, and well, it's like already happened with Char Heidsieck, for example. People are looking at their Simple Brut Reserve, which has been based 2012, mise en cave, like put in the cellar in 2013, and then disgorged in 2018. So Simple Brut Reserve with excellent 2012 vintage as a base has been on lease for 5 years, and people say, wow, this is fantastic. And now they are shortening this period of aging, and people started complaining, hey, what's happening? Are you cutting back, on aging, you're reducing your quality? While it's right at the opposite. In 2012, the group had little problems. That's a different story, but that's because of those problems. They had a stock of champagne that they had to age longer than now. Normally, a Brut Reserve wouldn't age for 5 years. So I think, for the big houses probably will result in longer ages because obviously the sales are going to go down. And but for the small winemakers, it's not that, it's not that obvious. Like I say, in Russia, for example, the allocations are all taken. And I heard that the countries that didn't fulfill their allocation are selling them. And there are people ready to get them because with this COVID situation, it's not happening at once. Okay, March, April was a little different. Nobody knew what was going on, so we prefer to go on a lockdown at once. But then some countries recovered easy. Some countries didn't go to fall down or to the complete lockdown. Some countries, like for example, Russia, when people ask me how COVID is going in Russia, hey, you've seen Russia, it's like 10 hours in the plane. So when it's 8 o'clock in Moscow, it's already evening on the other side of Russia. So, but joking. So when in Moscow there is COVID wave, in Siberia, there are only like first hints of it, and vice versa. When there is still first wave in Siberia, Moscow is already opening the bars, and I think this may actually help the little growers, like good ones who don't elaborate lots of bottles. I think they can do better this year, but again, there are about 3,000 producers in Champagne, and some of them will do better, some of them will be in a difficult situation.
Are all the champagne houses closed right now, or the local people at least, or from France can go visit the champagne houses?
Well, I think at this point with the lockdown, it's closed because.
Right now, for sure, yeah.
Right now, yes, because I've seen. Like you can probably stop by, go and collect your bottles. I don't know how you can justify it with this famous attestation. Probably get some groceries. We can say it's a grocery again. But what I really liked, at least what I heard about Reims and other places, that the cavistes are still open, meaning this is considered as essential. So okay, I'm good with that, because there were countries like South Africa where people literally couldn't buy any alcohol. Their government thought that this provoked. I don't have a clue what it was going to provoke, but. To me, it's okay. You only made it worse. Any country that tried to ban alcohol in their life, Russia, the United States, this famous Prohibition Act, never succeeded and only made it worse.
Yeah, it has the opposite effect.
Exactly. So, but before this complete lockdown, the houses were pretty much open. I mean, obviously the social distance, mask, and all that had to be followed. But I visited Champagne just a week before the lockdown, and
Yeah, that's why I was asking, because I saw on your Instagram that.
yeah, but obviously with this complete lockdown, when you cannot walk, it's easy in Belgium. In Belgium, this is a bit strange of a lockdown. We don't have any papers that we need to fill to justify. Technically, I can go 120 kilometers from my place to the seaside and enjoy the sea breeze without any explanation. But people try to stay reasonable by themselves. I mean, Belgium is a smaller country, and people say, okay, if you go any further, they're probably more severe lockdown. So let's try to do our best. But I think
it's always better to be careful. It's very interesting. Here in France, there is lockdown, and we need the papers, but since now I didn't see any controls or police or anything when I go to the shop for groceries or something. I even went for a run, but so you cannot notice it.
that was a good one. It's a good one. I mean, I think people got more reasonable now, and to me, unless you really do some stupid things, you don't have to be penalized. I mean, it's like, okay, there will be always people who try to make a big party, inviting 100 people. But if you just walk outside to do your grocery, go outside to buy a bottle of champagne, with following the social distance, okay, you're basically helping the wine industry. You're not hurting anyone.
Yeah, I think the big problems were the same as you said. The big parties. Actually, I saw when I arrived here to Bordeaux, because I'm from Romania. And from Hungary, it's quite complicated. I'm Hungarian. My nationality is Hungarian, and I arrived here to Bordeaux in September. And when we arrived to the university campus, the first 2 days, there was a huge party. I was shocked. Like 200 people close to each other, party, no masks. And I think those are the dangerous ones, and that's what the regulations are meaning to stop.
Well, but hey, you're in the middle of the wine region. I would be surprised if you had come over there and found no parties. That would be suspicious.
Yeah, that would be even more strange. Yeah. So coming back to champagne, I thought that we could give some advice for the starters in the champagne journey. So obviously, champagne is a luxury drink, and it is a quite expensive hobby. So maybe with your experience, you could help our viewers and listeners to how to start. What should they try first? How should they learn about champagne, besides visiting your masterclass, of course?
Well, read the Instagram. I mean, actually, that'll be one of the things. I'm so happy that now I can see there is a strong champagne community in Instagram, which wasn't the case even a few years ago, because it's at a certain point I don't really like professionals, like true professionals, because they say, okay, I've just tasted, I don't know, Boulanger RD 79, this is good. But if you find a 64 vintage or whatever vintage it is, it's gonna be even better. Okay, and here I am sitting in my apartment saying, where would I find the 79 vintage? So, because they've tasted so many champagnes, for them it's like, okay, they're really looking for something special, which is fine.
Yeah.
There is always demand for that. It's like Robert Parker and the others in in other wine regions, but still it helps, but it's not for the starters. I mean, it's good to have it, but you need to start from something more modest. So now there is a good community, and that you can follow. I'd say find a few bloggers that you like the style, follow them, and that'll be your source of information. Second, I'd probably buy a few books. I really like. I put the book over here just in case you got some tricky questions, so I got the answer. But I really like this book, which is written by Gerd Kohn, called Champagne: The Future Uncorked. It's not only like comprehensive, but you can see how big it is. It's got Nice pictures, nice photos.
Oh, nice. So it's a easier read for beginners.
Exactly. And plus, this is a good gift. I mean, with all these pictures, you don't have to read all, I don't know, 600 pages, whatever. I mean, this is huge. But you can start reading. There is information about your growers. It's always better to read something with photos than some boring text. Obviously, Petroleum is really good. But for me, this is more advanced level because he talks about terroir. And the third one, obviously, tasting. Tasting, this is the most important part. If you can find some community in your town, in the place you live, I'd suggest this because, like you said, champagne is really expensive. And I've got only 2 bottles now, really approachable, meaning like entry level. I taste them and they're different. One of them, it's 95% Meunier from Mousset Fils, Cédric Mousset. And another one is like 2014 vintage wine, strict one. Another one is Duminil with the 33% Chardonnay Pinot Meunier, Pinot Noir equal with 21 years of Solera in this place. So talking about just those 2 bottles, they're totally different. And you may not like it, not because one of them is good, one of them is bad. It's just like apples and oranges. If you like apples, not necessarily you like the oranges. So you spend 25 euros for apples, and you don't enjoy it because it's simply not orange. So to me, it's really important to go to the place where you can taste a few bottles and to determine your style. And normally I'd recommend champagne. Normally I'd say, hey, just come to Champagne. There are places like the Glupot or Le Wine Bar Le Vintage where they serve 5, 6, 7 bottles of the growers, which is important by glasses. So you can pay, I don't know, 10, 12 euros and enjoy the glass. And people are always ready to help you. So, but now traveling to Champagne is not an option, not at least for another few weeks. I'd say community and tasting. And don't be afraid to go and to leave the big houses because people always think, okay, I've tasted Moët Chandon, I've tasted Veuve Clicquot, I've tasted Mou. Then they go to some store when they see a commercial in Carrefour, buy 2 bottles for 10 euros each. Well, this is not technically champagne. Technically, it is champagne, but if you start your meeting with champagne from those bottles, like 10 euros, 12 euros each, you'll be disappointed. As much as I'd be probably get killed for this phrase, I'd say buy Prosecco instead. Prosecco is honest. You pay 5 euros, you chill it, you drink it chilled. Okay, it's good. Champagne is more complicated, and in my opinion, you need to start, to find some guide.
I think tastings are very good for starters because, as you said, you have to find your style. Because you buy a bottle, and if you are not experienced with wines or champagnes, you might think that, oh, I don't like this, and you stop trying because you don't know that there is a huge variety, is a huge world. But in a tasting, you can try like 10, 20 champagnes or wines, and you don't have to buy all those bottles. So that helps. And the Instagram thing is very very good. I'm happy that you brought it up because actually this podcast and this interview is because of Instagram. We met on Instagram. We're following each other, and it's amazing. Our Wine Inspires little community is growing quite beautiful.
And Instagram is a great thing now, meaning it used to be, well, it still offers an opportunity just to post some nice photo, and there are many people who post nothing but photos. But there are lots of people who actually taking care of like content and blog and try to, photo is just to attract attention because what I found, it's always important to rely on a photo on Instagram, but then there is really nice content, and if you are willing to read it, you are more than welcome. And there is nice champagne community. It's a global one. English, French, even Russian. I mean, you can always find, even if you don't speak English, you can find people that speak your own language and can tell you some story in champagne. Now, then also it's also a question if this particular champagne is available in your region, but that's a different story. For example, it's always easy in Europe where you can order a box of champagne from the winemaker or from an online store, but in some countries like the United States or in Russia, you may not even have an importer bringing this champagne, but you can always find something else. So I'd say tasting is always the key. And maybe, the point of the start is you need to realize that it's not all the champagnes are the same. I put it this way, because people think, hey, I just tasted some champagne only to find out it was Cava, Prosecco, Asti, Franciacorta, maybe other wines, but they have a perception that it's champagne. Anything with bubbles is champagne. Like even in Russia, we have Soviet champagne, which after the October Revolution of 1917, because if you take Crystal Cuvée, it was made for the Russian Tsars. And after the Soviet Revolution, the Great October Revolution, obviously we could no longer buy the champagne because France was a capitalist country and we were communist with comrades. So we decided to invent our own champagne. For that, we took either like Charmat method, or we just simply took some cheap wine, added some sugar, gasify it, carbonize it artificially, and we call it Soviet champagne. So later in 90s, I know France didn't really like it, and they wanted us to remove this Soviet champagne label. And as far as I know, right now we still can use champagne as long as it's written in Russian. For example, we have this Champanskoye, but as soon as the bottle leaves the territory of Russia, it has to be named sparkling wine, bubble, Zekt, whatever, except champagne.
Yeah.
But that's the champagne people tasted for so many years that when I bring them a bottle of true champagne, they say, this is some terrible acidic stuff. Well, this is a real one.
Yeah, it's not the sweet. Yeah, I think it was the same in Romania as part of the communist bloc. In Romanian, it's Champaniaque. They are still, like, in general population, people call all sparkling wine Champaniaque.
And I can imagine probably the older people, if you bring a bottle of like really nice champagne to, for example, your parents or to your grandparents, they most likely, you'll be the one enjoying it, and the older people will ask for something sweeter.
Yeah.
At least
Yeah, I think that is a general rule.
it's changing now, fortunately, because people started traveling more, they discover more champagne, plus we have importers. One thing about champagne, that when true champagne's was originally brought into Russia, it was expensive. I mean, people, like if you take a bottle of May Chandon, for example, that is 30-35 euros in Europe, it would be 70, 80, 90 even plus in Moscow. Which is expensive, and to be a champagne lover, you have to be really almost like filthy rich in Russia. The situation's been changing, and now there are some champagnes that, especially for the growers, I know a grower is called à la volée. It's got nothing to do with Peter Crawford à la volée. It's à la volée Russia now, and he's bringing such growers like Etienne Carzak, Cédric Mousset, Paillard, Doyard, and the others. And the price in Russia, okay, it's more expensive because you still have to pay custom duties on that, but it's quite reasonable, and you can enjoy a bottle of nice grower without spending a fortune. So this is changing too. And if I probably another advice about how to become a champagne lover for the beginners: find a place to buy champagne, because again, not all the stores are the same, and you can find some good place where more dedicated to the grower, so you can make a place in order domain. But to me, this is already the second step. The first one is to understand your style and to get into the tasting. That's how we started our Russian wine club. You have 10 people bringing it, everybody brings their own bottle, and in the end you taste 10 bottles of wines. You may not like 3, more or less you're okay with 4, but the 3 one you like, then you follow this style. That's how I ended up with champagne. I've been tasting like everyone. I've started with heavy vanilla, what they call vanilla bomb, like meaning really very heavy, fruity, vanilla, oaky thing with lots of alcohol. They're understandable and they're really approachable to everyone. And then your taste gets finer, and I mean, there is nothing wrong in Bordeaux. Personally, I like Bordeaux. I just had a bottle of 86 Bordeaux a few days ago. And I like it, but if it's properly made, it's just, again, apples and oranges. Now I'm more on the champagne side, but I never refuse a bottle of good wine like Barolo, Bordeaux or something, because for me this is also important to be like broad-minded.
Yeah, of course, of course. And the other thing about tastings is that you can talk about it because wine and champagne is all about the story
Exactly.
and all the history. And without that, it's not the same experience. And with a community or a group, it's much better. Yeah, and you have to learn to express your tasting and your feelings about the wine because most of the beginners feel a little bit like shy and they think that if they don't say something professional it might be wrong and yeah it's a process to start to engage in wine tastings.
Yeah, that's another reason why. That's another reason why we really like our Bubbles Academy in Riga because there are two of us are kind of like teachers, but the others are student. Doesn't matter if one of them is experienced sommelier and another is just they had maybe 2, 3, 10 bottles of champagne in his life. For us, they're all the students, and just like in any school, if a student says something stupid, people don't laugh. People say, "Okay, I wasn't born in Champagne either. A few years ago, I was just the same." So you answer this question, you explain, and that's what I also try to do during my tasting because I've traveled so much to Champagne. I say, yeah, when I visited this guy, he actually told me this. Yeah, I've got so much inside info that I can talk, I don't know, for hours and hours about, I don't know, like Cedric Mousset, I spent a week harvesting there. So I've seen many, many details that were new even with my experience. So I can talk about his wine, well, maybe not for a week, but for a couple of days for sure. So, and I can use his example to talk about others' wine, other people's wine, but having all this information, I can answer even some stupid question, even some basic one, because I can trace the path of this wine from the grapes to the bottle that I.
Yeah, there are patterns.
So yeah, I'd say go find the community. To me, this is you save your time, effort, and most important, you save your money, because
and you can have fun as well.
That's the best part.
Okay.
This is, even take us. I'm already had a couple of glasses of this. Well, maybe a quarter of bottle of each. Even have an interview with champagne is still about fun.
Yeah. It's better than a plain interview.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were talking about the Instagram, and I actually planned this segment where I choose some of your Instagram pictures, and maybe you can tell us the behind the scenes story. What
That's a funny part.
That might be interesting. Yeah. So I think I will share my screen and I show you, this way. I show you some pictures and maybe you can tell us the story, because as I mentioned at the beginning of the interview that I really like your Instagram. You have very insightful posts, and it's like a blog. Every post of yours is like a blog post, so it's not just about the pictures.
And the hardest part for me is because Instagram. This is our Bubbles Academy.
Yeah, I think this was your first masterclass.
Yeah, because that's what we did is. After we finished our academy, I don't know if you'll share this picture with the others when you make an interview. But for those who don't know, it's like me and Stas and about 100 balls in front of us. So once we finished, because we had 3 days of master classes, and it's about like 10, 12 bottles in each master class, and we never realized how many bottles of champagne we tasted in total. Meaning, okay, you taste it, then you put the empty bottles aside, then you taste, put the bottles aside, and we decided, okay, let's keep all of them till the last day. And when we found out how many bottles we had in total, I said, hey, we have to. There is a good saying that one picture is better than 1,000 words, and I think this is perfect.
Or 1,000 bottles.
Instead of telling how about our academy and about what we did, you just show this photo and say, this is what we had.
Yeah. This is the best advertisement for your masterclass.
Exactly.
This shows pretty good. What an experience.
So you come to our school, this is your handbooks. And people say, okay, I like them. I said, okay, join us.
Do you have partnerships with champagne houses, or do you buy all the bottles?
We buy them. I mean, the whole project of the Champagne again. Well, if I talk about myself personally, I'm not an official ambassador of any house, but there are certainly a few houses that I like. For example, people, if you look at my Instagram, you see many photos of Bilkar Salmon or Czapp Árpád, or there are many growers like Mousse. And this is a personal taste. In the end, I think you say, okay, I like apples. And for example, to me, despite so many wines tasted, I still think that Bilkar Salmon Rosé is one of the best. I still think that the Brut Reserve of Czapp Árpád is the best. Obviously, if you go higher with the cuvée, they're also good. But to me, this is really important if a house can make good basic wine. Meaning, if you make a bottle that costs 200 euros, you've got a freedom of choose your best grapes, of choose your time of aging. You're basically free to do anything you want. But if you sell a bottle for 35-40 euro range, then you really need to make some effort. And that's I'm not in commercial with anyone, and so I simply don't post the bottles that I don't like. And we decided to use the same approach in our academy. We decided to present the winemakers in the houses that we personally like, because like you said, I tasted officially 1,000 bottles. That's probably maybe the same amount, maybe a little less, but comparable. He likes Burgundy wine, that's why he has to share his liver between Burgundy and Champagne, while me, I'm simply Champagne. I enjoy a bottle of Burgundy, but most of the time it's Champagne. So, and we decided to put the bottles that we personally like, that we personally drink as a pleasure. And obviously, since we know some growers, since we know some houses, it's not more like partnership. It's like we're saying, hey, for example, Cedric, we're gonna put your bottle for our tasting. Do you mind to sign it? It's or give us a bottle just because, just as an example. I mean, we it's not like whoever offers us a free bottle will be promoted in our academy. It's vice versa. It's or some growers actually offered their help because they knew they saw our photos in Instagram and they say, hey, it's a pleasure to be there. And we say, okay, if you can help us, or maybe give us some exclusive cuvée that just hit the market, or some still wines. So that kind of help we appreciate. But otherwise, that was the whole point, that our academy stayed independent, because otherwise it will be a
commercial.
Exactly, commercial stories. And for me, I already found out that it's hard to talk about wine. Maybe one of the reasons why my blog is so easy to go, it's hard to believe, but sometimes it takes only like 10-15 minutes for me to write a post of A4 page in English in Instagram. That's because it's my passion. I start typing, it's like tring, and the whole post is already made. It's ready to go, because I'm telling the story about something that I like. It's a true passion. And therefore, if I make a masterclass about something that I don't really like, it will be so much false in it. Meaning, okay, I don't like this, but I have to present it because I'm an official partnership. And people taste it and say, hey, Yuri, I mean, with all your experience, you really think that?
Yeah, and I think also the people feel the enthusiasm behind the story. This way it's much more relevant and authentic.
Exactly. If I bring the bottle for pedagogical purposes, that's one thing. For example, on day one, we had a masterclass which called Styles of Houses, where you can actually bring like 10 bottles of big houses, basic ones, not top cuvée, so people could understand the differences between the houses. Because many people also think, okay, no matter if I take a bottle of Vineyards, Perrier-Jouet, Boulanger, Veuve Clicquot, Moum, Moët Chandon, they all be the same. Well, no. There's so many parameters like reserve wine, aging, different portion of grapes, and many others, that even if you go with the big houses only, it could be tremendous difference. And for these purposes, okay, I'll bring the champagne that I may not personally like, but it'll be pedagogical for you to taste it and say, okay, I've tasted this champagne, I understand what you're talking about, I understand your concept about oxidation, stainless steel, aging, and many other factors. I got my lesson. Now let's switch to something tasty. So
Sometimes it's useful to taste the wine faults as well.
exactly. But you do this in the master classes, not if you have to spend your 30 euros for a bottle of champagne, which you hate, and you spend it and you say, okay, now I'm going to dump it in the sink.
That would be much tougher.
Yeah, exactly. Ah, that I like.
Yeah, I like this one.
So this was actually, I was harvesting this bottle, Cédric Mousset, and what I like is it's my first harvest in my life, not because I was too lazy to go, but because the harvest time is never set in Champagne.
Yeah.
The growers always taste their grapes and they go with the maturity, and you just never know when they start. I mean, it's August, September, okay, plus or minus a week or two when it gets closer to the harvest time, but they can start, okay, 3 days from now we start going. So this was my first harvest at Cédric, and we've been knowing each other for quite a while. And I said, hey Cédric, if I can come, I come. So I came over there, and this was my actual first day of cutting the grapes. I should say it's tough. It's a tough job because if somebody doesn't know, the harvesting is always manual. Exactly, you've got those boxes, and if you ever been to Champagne, it's so nice to see those slopes. I mean, they're so enjoyable. But if you have to climb up the slope with these boxes of, it could be painful, and then you have to go down the slope carrying all these boxes and cutting the grapes. And for me, I'm a tall guy. I'm like 187, and for me, just going this for every single bunch of grape was really tough. So when we had a lunch break, I had really happy face. Then this half of the day was over. But in the end, I really like the ambience, all this conversation and people, the cask. Yeah, they just be all around and it's just clack. It was pretty enjoyable.
You were the only one, like as a tourist there, or this whole group is?
No. I was the whole group was like a regular group, and when I was there, I actually asked Cédric to put me, not to treat me as a blogger, because I've seen so many harvests on internet when they bring you to some plot, when they give you the tools, you cut a few bunches, you take a few nice photos, then there is a table, then you have nice lunch, and so I said no. What I want to be. Basically, I want to be a worker. So if you want me to put and cut the grapes, that's fine. But we soon found out that I'd be more efficient loading the presses, because I'm a little tougher guy loading some stuff than just cutting grapes. Where cutting the grapes, a little girl can cut twice more grapes than I do, because it should be faster. She doesn't have to, duck all the time. So while Exactly. So, after this, Cédric put me into the press room where we worked almost like till midnight, because not only you press it, but then you have to clean everything and all that. Then you have to load 4 tons because, 4 tons of grape in about 8-9 minutes. Obviously, you don't do it by yourself. You have a partner, you load together. And another person from Instagram that I worked with was a Greenhead Champagne. Dominique. So there were a couple of days when we loaded the presses together, but again, we were working. Okay, probably Cédric decided to let us work at least a bit less harder than he would do for the worker, but still we were working, and honestly I like that. I mean, I didn't really want to be treated like a star,
Even if you are.
No, that was work. Okay, maybe less stuff than for the rest of the world, but it was a true world, and at least I tried to do my best. So if next year there is no COVID, I'm ready to join for 2021, because I really like the ambience. I really like this friendly ambience there. Yeah, and obviously champagne, because when you don't have lots to do, for example, you loaded your press, you're cleaning everything, you arrange everything, you're good to go. Okay, there is time, there are moments that you have nothing to do. I mean, everything is clean, it's spotless, and it takes about 3 hours to do the press. So you grab a bottle of champagne, you enjoy it, and that I like the most.
Yeah, that's the best part.
Yeah, that's the best part. Eases the pain in the back because hey, we loaded like 5 presses a day at least, so about like 20 tons of grape, but it went pretty smooth.
Did the champagne houses have problems with labor this year because of COVID? Because I know that bigger houses, they have workers like from all around countries from, and was this a problem this year or?
I've never heard them complaining. I think that they happen to well to start with. For example, when I came to Cedric's place, we got all tested. Every one of us got tested against COVID. So and we try to stay in the community. So I think the bigger houses, solve this problem in the same way. Well, to start with, the harvest quota was only 7,000 kilos plus 1,000 kilo. They could be commercialized later. So the harvest was already lower than expected. Second, I think they really did some precautions against COVID. So they tried to keep people in the community, and people actually followed those rules because nobody wanted to have a COVID in their harvest community, and then the whole crew would be sent back. So I haven't heard about the big problems. Maybe they replaced workers from one country to another. You know, for example, one country was still under COVID, and so they had, instead of going to country A, they went to country B. But I haven't heard about the really big issues that they were short-handed. Or maybe the bloggers showed up. I don't know. Maybe they were also, all the Instagram stars were harvesting for them. So that I don't know.
Yeah, maybe that was the help. Yeah, because harvesting by hand is quite it requires a lot of labor. Yeah, lots of hands.
And you need those hands in a really short period of time. Meaning, like at Cedric, we started harvesting on September the 2nd, if I don't mistake, and we finished in about a week. So it's not like you can stretch this harvesting, for 3-4 weeks. That's one of the biggest problems with champagne. You really want to take advantage when you can, because if your grape is overripe, you have other issues that can basically ruin all your work. So you need a huge amount of people in a quite short period of time. And okay, it's stretched from one sub-region to the other, from one slope to another, but it's still quite short period of time.
1 or 2 weeks, and it's hard to find like seasonal workers for just this short period. Yeah, it must be tough.
Yeah, like what I heard, Champagne employs about 100,000 people for this time. Obviously, some of them are students, family members.
Wow, that's impressive. Okay, so I thought that let's stop the sharing. Is it okay now?
Yeah.
You see me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I thought that it would be nice to end this on a higher note. This will be a funny segment. There is this site called answerthepublic.com. It is a huge database which collects Google searches around different topics. What are the questions that people are trying to find an answer to in Google? And there are champagne questions, like hundreds or maybe thousands of champagne questions, which we are going to answer today. All of them. No, not all of them, because
I'm ready. I'll just bring another bottle and...
Enough? Is it 2 bottle enough for 1,000 questions?
Yeah, well, I'll bring a case.
So I thought that I might limit those, so I choose 10 questions. So we'll have some more questions. We need some topics to talk about in the next episode as well. Yeah, so I will ask you these 10 questions, and you have to answer quickly, short answers. Some of the questions are like, these are the most searched questions, so you can imagine that they are not professional questions. Some of them are quite silly, or they don't even have sense, but I think this would be funny to try to.
I'll try to do my best to be short.
Okay, so let's start this. Try to answer as short and quickly as you can. So, first question. Can champagne expire?
If it does, send the bottles to me. I'll take care of them. But no, well, most of the time, no. Maybe bad storage, but it's well preserved.
How champagne taste?
Brilliant. I mean, the best taste in the world.
Are champagne houses open?
You just have to find out the door to knock, the right one to knock.
Exactly. How champagne is served?
With pleasure and chilled, but not too chilled.
What champagne does James Bond drink?
Only good one. Boulanger, Tétanger. But he's got a taste, I should admit.
Yeah. Which champagne glass is the best?
One of this one, but to me, the best glass of champagne is full. And then you can go from there.
That's a good example. Which champagne is used in Formula One?
Moon, if I don't mistake, but it changes sometimes.
Yeah, I think Moon is the most popular. Why champagne is expensive?
There are so many people who like it, and it's just limited. But to be serious, there's so much labor to make this bottle of champagne, and it cannot go too cheap. Believe me, I tried to explain. Nah.
Champagne is made with what variety of grapes?
7 officially, but let's take 3 because the other 4 are like forgotten grapes: Meunier, Pinot Noir, and Chardonnay.
And the last one, will champagne explode in checked luggages?
No. I proved it so many times, so you can.
Okay, so you have experience with this one. All right, so I think we answered the question of the public, the most asked questions. So now everyone is covered.
And if people have more questions after this interview, they're welcome to send them, and I'll try to answer them later.
Yeah, they can leave it in the comments, and they can leave it in the comments of your Instagram posts, and we will try our best to help.
I'll be happy to answer, because these are just 10 questions, but about the luggage, I like it, so don't be scared.
Yeah. Okay, this was fun. Thank you again for joining me. I hope we can continue this discussion soon in real life.
Me too.
Maybe one of your masterclasses.
Yeah, as good as all these online tools are, what I found out, as soon as the lockdown was over, May or June, I mean, the first week that I did, I went to Champagne, and this was amazing. To me, nothing replaces this feeling when you actually visit the growers. And when I was on Instagram, the growers started, "Hey, Yuri, you here? Come and join us." And I say, I mean, I'll be happy to, but I got only so much time. But this was the best feeling I had, and I think this is, if there is one best thing about Champagne, is it's sharing impressions. But the best one is sharing the bottle, of course, and that is hardly possible through internet. So I wish everyone that they could share the bottle of nice champagne in person with the people they like, and simply enjoy it.
Yeah, thank you, Yuri. These are some beautiful thoughts at the end of the interview. Thanks for the viewers for the attention. I hope they liked this first podcast episode. If you enjoyed this, feel free to subscribe and leave your thoughts in the comments. And yeah, I hope we will continue this series, and see you soon. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.